and Colonel Donovan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. David Osborne, St. Paul's Church Site Manager.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to St. Paul's National Historic Site. Really great to be involved. This is really a tremendous initiative. I didn't know about it, I must say, till 6 months ago. Ms. Torres informed me. It's been just great working with her and preparing this. It's a great honor and appreciation to be part of an event this time of year when it's cold and the sun is down early, and just to brighten up whatever we can. In this case, the final resting place of veterans is well worth it. The St. Paul Cemetery is one of the oldest in the country. There are 2 stones here that go back to 1704. 2 people were buried here this year. It's still occasionally used. It is not a military cemetery in a formal sense. The veterans buried here are buried here because their families are buried here. They lived in the area. They went to church here. They lived in the locality. It is a family cemetery, and many men buried here with their families served our nation in various wars. And they still, even though in a non-military cemetery, the sense of the importance still lies in the testament. There are many veteran stones here. That's the last thing they wanted to leave as a testament. So for a non-military cemetery, there are actually quite a few veteran stones here. I was asked just to talk about 4 men in particular of the veterans buried here, just as representatives of the service. So just, brief bio. This man here buried in Alfred Thompson, Thomson, born in Canada, 1900. Comes here as a young man in 1919. Rest of his life, he's a New Yorker in the census. He's in Brooklyn or Ardsley or Yonkers. He's a New Yorker. Professional man, actually, held a managerial post with Con Edison in the 1930s. World War II, he enlisted with the Merchant Marine. He goes through a training program, United States Maritime Services, graduates in 43, immediately put out to sea on the Merchant Marine. In his own way, one of the many people who helped us win World War II in various capacities. He served till 47, 4 years in the Merchant Marine. He unfortunately caught pneumonia at sea in the course of duty, was taken to a hospital in Sweden, did not survive. Died in 1947. He and his wife Evelyn had no children. He lived in Yonkers at the time. Man buried here named Edward Patterson, born in Ireland in 1818, emigrates to America in the 1840s, joins the Revenue Cutter Service, which is then under the auspices of the Coast Guard. So he would be our Coast Guard representative. He learns the skill of carpentry on the ships as a Revenue Cutter Service during the Mexican-American War. So they are bringing troops and supplies down to the Mexican front to support the Army. They're helping deliver dispatches to naval commanders. Survives the war, returns home to the civilian life. Lived most of his life in Pelham. The skills in the Army helped him. He became a competent carpenter, a lifelong skill, helped him earn a livelihood. He and his wife Margaret had 5 children, all boys, lived until 1896. He's buried over on the right side of the cemetery. Of the naval men buried here, several. Michael McLaughlin, also born in Ireland, so we're talking 3 immigrants already here. Comes here as a young man in the 1850s. As a teenager, I think the rest of the family died in the potato famine. Because here's a teenage Irishman showing up by himself in the 1850s. Lived in Boston, got some work on the docks, shot with some maritime skills, joins the Union Navy, 1862, served on the USS Genesee, so 3 years of competent service, rose to the rank of assistant engineer, served blockade duty, and we're blockading the South as part of our effort to subdue the rebellion. Also some gunboat duty on the Mississippi River under General Grant in the Vicksburg campaign. Lives through the war, again, one of the many people who helped secure the Union and win the Civil War in his way, along with whoever else served in whatever capacity. After the war, actually the skills, again, learned in the Army. I mean, he gets a good job with the Ward Steamship Line, had a long, nice career, fairly good salary as a chief engineer for the Ward Steamship Line in Brooklyn. Lived there. He and his wife Pauline had 6 children. He lived till 1912. He served, if we look at his stone, it says served under Admiral David Farragut, the leading Union admiral who's buried in Woodlawn in Brooklyn. He's buried here. And then of the many Army men buried here, Samuel T. Pell in the Revolutionary War, born in 1754, so he's a colonist, born before there's the United States of America. Lived in Pelham. He's a Pell from Pelham. Joins the war at the very beginning, 1775, so he would have been under that flag there, the Continental colors, but they still had a little bit of the Union Jack because they're fighting about having yet declared independence. Served really for the whole war, volunteered for the Canadian campaign, fought in the failed effort to take Quebec, which was turned back on New Year's Eve, 1775-6. Stayed in the army the whole way. He was really there the whole way. Lived through the Valley Forge winter, distinguished service at Saratoga, the great American victory over the British in 1777. He's there at Yorktown, the last real battle of the war, when the British and the Hessians ground arms and surrender, really the end of the Revolutionary War. Does come home, lives through 7-8 years of really the whole Revolutionary War. And I bet you it was on a day like this. He was riding his horse in the middle of a blizzard in Pelham on December 29, 1786. Something happened in the middle of the blizzard. After 7 or 8 years of war, he's a horrible horse accident. He dies a civilian death. He's 32. He's buried behind the church. Many other men out there, interesting, different stories. He never married. He was only 32. You know, their families and their lives. So if anybody comes back in more detail and more depth, we do these kind of tours, especially Memorial Day, Veterans Day. Another very interesting story you'll hear about from the Colonel, and it's that Corporal Link of the famous Harlem Hellfighters 369, who actually paid the ultimate price and was killed in action in France in 1918. But the Colonel of the current regiment is here. He'll elaborate on that a little. As we walk around, if you want to, please be careful out there. I'll try to tell a few more stories as we lay wreaths at the graves of particular vets, if you want to. It's icy and snowy, so if you do come with us, please be careful.